Yo, 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 what is up, everybody? You know what time it is. We got to talk sports, Jim. And off the bench, we've been failing ourselves. We haven't talked a lot of headline sports here. It's been a few weeks, but a lot going on, a lot to unpack, a lot to talk about. So without further ado, let's jump right into this. I will start with you. You tell me, do you want to go college first? Do you want to go NFL first? Or do you want to do betters? Do you want to do grow the game? You tell me. You're the man of the hour. You tell me what direction you want to go. Let's
Mm,
choose your own adventure.
Um, let's go college first, man. I don't feel like beating you up on NFL yet, and there's so many do betters. I feel like we shouldn't start the episode off with so much negativity. We got a good
Very,
college vibe to talk about.
very, very true. So, all right, college. Let's talk your team, LSU. Let's jump out of the gates. Um, when you look at the game before it even starts, matchup wise, what are you thinking? Are you thinking this is a good LSU team playing a South Carolina team that has been playing pretty good? Or do you think LSU is going to humble them and go over there and just show them like SEC football is really about?
No, I actually thought it was pretty evenly matched. I thought that the fact that it was an early kickoff, which has never done well for LSU and at South Carolina, that South Carolina had the advantage. I thought it was going to come down to, who could make less mistakes, and honestly, that was still the truth of the matter. Because there were two pick sixes that were wiped off the board because of lack of discipline on South Carolina. South Carolina, you know how I am with LSU. As I've had growth over the last few years. Doesn't matter which sport you're talking about with LSU. I see things more clearly than I used to, and the reality was South Carolina made some big plays, and they had a couple knuckleheads decide that they wanted to ruin those moments. So that's big. Daniel, you return a pick six all the way, and then it comes back because as well as I do on when you're returning a interception, you can't clean the quarterback's clock. They're gonna call you every time, college or NFL. That rule has been pretty clear for about 4 or 5 years now. So why do it, man? And then you got the quarterback wrapped up, you horse collar and sling him to the ground on a pick six. And both times just inexcusable hits on the quarterback. I thought South Carolina, take those mistakes away. They played a better game. I thought Nussmeyer, because I'm all about the Nuss bus. I could have easily got off of it a couple times. I mean, we're talking about throws right to defenders, Daniel, when we're talking about these pick sixes. We ain't talking about, you know, maybe just a deceptive defense and you had a robber. Like the robber was standing in front of the receiver.
I mean, he's 285, two touchdowns, one interception. Does he need to do more?
Yeah, he has to do more because John Emery went down, your running back. Obviously, Caden Durham showed, major potential, which we knew when we signed him as a big time recruit. But you got to give him a chance to work his way in. And so I think it kind of falls more on you as the passing game. You are a guy who has been sitting there as backup, learning this system, learning leadership. This is your opportunity, and he's still a guy I stand behind. I'm not genuinely off the nuts bus. It's just hopefully, UCLA is not the UCLA that we traditionally know. They, as a matter of fact, lost this past week. So I'm hoping that you come home against a team that you're definitely better than and you get it back right. But at the end of the day, Daniel, we talk about it. It doesn't matter. A win's a win, right? It was ugly. It's not something that I'm proud of, but we got it nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I would be concerned with for you guys really is the the run game defense that you guys have. I mean, you got just demolished in the box, and I don't know if that's because defensively you're trying to be better in the secondary or whatever the case is. But the South Carolina running back had 19 carries for 143 yards and 2 TDs.
The one where he busted out for 75 yards was a defensive scheme. He brought the one safety on the one side in a blitz, and then the other safety had came up in the box. He made the right play, but he missed the tackle. So when the other safety is not back and then you miss the tackle and that dude's speed, nobody was catching him. So, I mean, Rocket was an appropriate name for that guy, Rocket Sanders. So he took off. So I don't know, man. Me and you played ball together and safety, granted I was the backup most of the time because Floyd and Allen Irvin, who played in the NFL, were the guys we played with. But I understand the safety's position. I just don't like having both of them up at the line with no security for when a guy like that gets loose. But you're right altogether. But we knew coming into the season LSU's defense wasn't going to be great, right? And that's where this whole Nussmeier thing is, right? We're expecting you to slang points. That's what LSU has become. Gone are the days of a powerhouse defense and we run the ball. It is now shootouts. And that's how LSU wins games. So you're going to have to put up the points. But I still like some things that I saw. And like I said, Caden Durham showed that he can be that guy. I love Mason Taylor at tight end. Lacey didn't make any boneheaded, mental mistakes. We know he's the next elite wide receiver.
He didn't throw up his finger guns today.
Yes, finger guns. The finger guns were being thrown by South Carolina. Let's go ahead and do one of the do-betters right here. And let me explain. When people see a kid flipping off a player, it's funny, right? But let me tell you, because me and you think on a deeper level. In that moment, it's funny. But that kid is the start of a process that he's the same guy that thinks when he goes to a professional football game and he's in the front row, he can say and do whatever he wants because he paid for a ticket. That's the start of that process. And that's why if you're a parent right there, you kind of have a laugh, but then you walk it back and you say, you know what? We don't do that. We're better than that. He's an athlete on this field. Let's have some respect. Because you know exactly what I'm talking about. They're the ones that are going to throw their drink. I think about the Russell Westbrook when they poured popcorn. Like this is that stuff right there. So end it now. It's fun for us all to laugh at. But that kid, you don't want to start down a path that ends up thinking that you have the right to do whatever. And let's be honest, some of these guys are unhinged. Man, I don't know that I would do any of that, man. What if that guy just decided to slap him?
Well, let me ask you this. What would have been the narrative if the kid flips the player off and the player turns around and gives double birds back at the kid? Like, what are we writing about? Are we writing about the kid or are we writing about the player and how they got bamboozled into retaliating on a 7-year-old or however?
Right. I mean, he would absolutely take the heat. The good news is, I believe it was Major Burns, which is your captain. And you usually don't get that C on your chest unless you know how to conduct yourself. And, I would have loved to have known the conversation between him and the kid. Did Major provoke it in such a way, or was he just having fun with the kid? And, like I said, the whole moment was fun. Like, I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer. I'm just addressing it because we've been in that world and we've seen it. And I've been on the floor of Grizzlies games where I've seen people, because they buy a ticket, think that they can say anything to anyone. And you just want to kind of, as a parent, you want to kind of eliminate that early.
Yeah. I thought it was funny. I'm not going to lie. It was funny on the surface, but once you think about it a little bit deeper, you go, man, like, where did the kid learn that behavior to start? And like, obviously my kid does things that they see me do that I wish that they probably wouldn't do. And so then I have to catch myself. But also my kid does things just sporadically because they're a kid. So I want to believe that this was a kid being a kid but I'll think about it. And just
this doesn't happen at most stadiums, because most stadiums is one of the first thoughts I had. Usually you can't sit that close like that. I was trying to figure that out altogether. How was there seating right there behind the end zone like that?
I don't know, but They got more money than I do.
Man,
Clearly.
something. Or, I mean, wouldn't make it funnier is if this was maybe the reason why he hit the seats is because he was a kid from the local hospital or whatever, and he's like, you know what, man, I only got so much time to live. I'm gonna have fun with this.
Then he should have gave him double birds. Then
Double birds. You know what? I don't care what y'all think about me. I only got so much time left. Kiss my ass.
that's right. All right, let's talk. Obviously, big deal around the Mid South area. The Tigs, the Tigers pick up a big win, and I don't care what anybody says when you can go on the road and you take on a team like Florida State and you can beat them wire to wire the way that they did. Um, that tells me a lot about the team that you have, the culture that you have, the coaching, and like your expectations for yourself moving forward. Um, I did not expect them to go in there and win and just fully just beat down defensively, but it was simply, I think, a couple things that FSU could have done, and if they do them, they are in the game. But I think the score of the game, 20-12, seems like, oh, it's a one-score game, but there, to me, like, there was no question Memphis was the dominant team and the better team, in my opinion. What do you think?
Yeah, and what stuck out to me on that defense, me and you were texting in real time, the speed of the defense, right? Because when you're talking about Florida State, you're talking about the caliber of athletes they're able to recruit there. And you would have thought the higher caliber athletes that were recruited were on Memphis. I mean, sideline to sideline, I'm just fast, flying all over the field, making big hits. I was inspired from the get-go by the defense, and that's something we know as Memphis fans. We know we're going to get good offense. What are we going to get from the defense? And so I was very, very inspired by the way, like you said, because it's wire to wire. They came out and they set the tone early.
Yeah, it's obviously the defense getting a fumble in the first series and really a buttery hands away from taking it back for a touchdown. But I mean, inevitably it ended up and led to 3 points. But putting the pressure on early and forcing a team like Florida State, who needs to win that game, and have even more pressure on them, I think that really set the tone, and the defense was just relentless. I'm talking just relentless all day long, even in situations where it's third and long, and even the last play of the game where they're throwing a Hail Mary, they're blitzing guys and just bringing the house, making DJ feel uncomfortable. And I'll be honest with you, I he's not as advertised. He's not what he was supposed to be when he transferred there. So I don't know what they're going to do, but there's a lot of chance for him to come out of that game and a lot of chance for him not to play moving forward. And I think, Norvell is going to have to do some soul searching because that guy was 16 of 30, 201 yards with a pick. I mean, his QBR rating was 33.6. I mean, Seth Hennigan on the flip side, like, he had an interception. His QBR was 71, but he was 25 of 38, 272, 2 touchdowns with his one interception, but they ran the ball well. Defensively, they play well. He didn't have to do anything crazy. But what I will say about Seth is that he gave you exactly what a guy who has been there for 4 years gives you. He was very calm. He was very collective. To me, I didn't see any frustration or any pressure or any ounce of uncomfortable play on his behalf. And I think that bleeds through the rest of the team because you were able to play very well. Anthony Lanphier, top receiver, 5 receptions, 66 yards, a touchdown. He had a big, 31-yarder. Rock Taylor, a big, 43-yard catch. Rock wasn't necessarily the biggest contributor of the game, but I think he pulls a lot of people and allows things to open up for others. So I'm excited, but I think moving forward, what Memphis needs to do is continue what they've done. I think it's a good sign knowing that you can play defense against that type of caliber of a team and you play it well from start to finish. But I will say they're going to Annapolis. They're playing Navy, typically a tough place to play. They just need to continue playing well, continue to do what they do best, and hopefully just keep winning football games.
Yeah,
But
I'm very pleased with Hennigan. Like you said, he didn't force any throws, try to make over. You could tell they had control of the game, right? So if it wasn't there, he didn't force it. Made very safe plays, good plays with his legs as always. And I love that he was getting the attention. Being on ESPN, getting national attention from the announcers, recognizing he still has yet. The thing is, Daniel, people still haven't really got to see just how good he is because even though Florida State, kind of somewhat kept it close, he still has not been forced to go out and win games with his arm because they were able to run the ball successfully and everything. I don't think people still know how good of a quarterback that we have. And when he airs it out, he's dynamic. But he did have one absolute dime over the shoulder down the sideline that he was able to display and show. But I don't necessarily want them to have any close games, but I wouldn't mind at some point where he showcases a game-winning drive where you see what he's got. But yeah, I love his weapons as usual. But when you look at the schedule, you talked about Navy, but when you look at it, I mean, there is not a team on there that you feel like is good enough to beat you. And I understand that Memphis has traditionally had a hiccup in the road, but they know what's at stake this year. I mean, I'm not seeing it.
I mean, not to get too far off on other teams, but Tulane had a good showing, played well. They're a tough team. Even teams like UTSA who got blasted by Texas, but everybody's getting blasted by Texas. So it's really hard to say how good they are. Yes, they've lost 2 games, but their schedule is pretty tough. And I mean, even teams that are tough plays like UAB and North Texas, those teams are traditionally tough games for Memphis. Is Memphis a better team? Yes, but it's going to be every week. The pressure's going to mount. The more they win in a row, the more pressure becomes to continue to win in a row. And I think that's where the difficulty lies. So, obviously, coach speak, take 1 week at a time. 0-0 every week.
All right. Since you brought up coach speak, I got a topic because I don't think you would bring it up otherwise. So on my social medias, but furthermore, when I went to Man Night last night, had a bunch of Ole Miss fans, and they were talking about LSU snuck it out, and I was like, yeah. And they were like, well, you're not gonna be able to sneak it out. Like a lot of trash talk at church, and I was like, y'all realize y'all have lost 7 straight in Tiger Stadium. Why you just? And they're like, well, we're not going. And they're talking with their chest puffed out. And then I see the post where they're dogging out Mississippi State for losing, and they're just talking this trash. And I believe this is a byproduct when we're talking about coach speak of their coach. Lane is entertaining, but at the end of the day, I think he's a punk, as my dad would say. I think Lane Kiffin's the kind of guy that talks a big game, but like it's kind of that's one of those things. Like he would talk, and then if you got in his face, he'd shut the up. Anyway, like I just think he's a punk, and I think at the end of the day, Ole Miss will be humbled like they always are, probably by LSU. And that's the game that I want more than any of them. But I just don't understand when you've never won anything, when the Sugar Bowl is your claim to fame, which is a down year for for LSU or Georgia or Bama, the real teams. Like, who are you to just piss on Mississippi State and assume that you're going to beat LSU? And I think these fans are buying way too much into it. You got a great ranking. That's fine. You haven't played anybody yet to be talking. And so I just wanted to go on that note because that same kind of thing is going on in Colorado, right? I told you Shedeur Sanders. Look, man, the Colorado State quarterback, they did the Instagram live thing or whatever. He said, what you do to hype the game before is part of what sells football. Not shaking his hand and trying to badmouth him with the camera in the face. You're a punk too. He's a punk. Lane's a punk. You're both going to get exposed because Colorado's going to lose 5 games more this year. Anyway, there's my rant, Daniel.
Well, I mean, for Ole Miss fans, it's gonna be funny when Lane ain't wearing that uniform next year.
And
He'll be down in Gainesville.
And I tell you, let's talk Tennessee, Daniel. I think I don't care if they're playing Kansas State last week. I say this. I like the way a lot of their schedule sets up. I like the fact that Georgia even looked vulnerable. Of course, I love Dylan Sampson, who should be in the Heisman race, and not just because he's. I think Tennessee really might be a national championship contender. And I say that they're going to go to Oklahoma this week. College game day is going to be there. Oklahoma has kind of looked pedestrian for a 16th ranked team, 15th ranked, whatever they're. I think they go in there and roll them too.
They're going to give them a welcome to the SEC little party. Yeah, I mean, Tennessee plays fast. They are going to score a lot of points. Last week was no indication of how good or bad they were. I mean, a lot of times when you blow teams out, you can see a lot of the defensive miscues. If the other team's allowed to score points, you can see, lack of focus and closing games out if teams are able to score a lot of points like late in the game. But offensively, they're just a juggernaut. They're a machine.
Well, defensively, I hadn't allowed a touchdown yet, and that was including NC State at a neutral site. Like that's people are so much talking about the offense. The defense is put the clamps down. That's why I'm a real believer, man. They got so much talent and speed on that team. I think Heupel has got them, which that's a storyline for this week. With Heupel in Oklahoma, but I'm a believer. I'm a believer in Texas so far. Like the SEC, it could get interesting with the teams other than just Georgia and Alabama, which are going to meet this week, and so I think the SEC could be as fun as ever this year.
I mean, the way their schedule sets up, if they go and blow out Oklahoma and Norman, which I think is a likely possibility, they go to Arkansas, Florida comes to them, and then they got Alabama.
So they're going to take care of those first two. Florida is not good. I'm not even going to talk about Arkansas. I don't need everybody in my mentions.
I mean, you could have Tennessee go to Arkansas, blow them out, and Arkansas fires their coach. They could then the next week blow out Florida, and Florida fires their coach. I mean, then in 2 weeks after that, Kentucky comes to town. They might go there, blow them out, and Kentucky might be thinking about a different direction.
What would be a great scenario and something we just haven't seen since, man, RIP to my dad, something that I don't remember since I was a kid, to see if Tennessee runs that slate like you just said, and if Alabama can beat Georgia, you will get an old school top 5 Alabama-Tennessee matchup, and sign me up for that.
I think you might get a number 1, number 2 matchup if that happens.
That would be awesome. No, because Texas isn't going to lose at any point, so you'd get number 2, number 3.
Yeah, very true, very true. But either way, on the college football front, anything more you want to discuss from this past week? I mean, there's so much. I just don't want to shortchange us on.
Yeah, I would like to apologize to you on here. I showed you my slip that I was going to bet. Now, luckily, it didn't come down to just that. So I ended up getting 8 out of 10. Missouri didn't cover the 14, so got bailed out. But I had the audacity to take the 16 points with Wisconsin. You said Wisconsin's burned us before. Plus, it's just the Big Ten. Like, really, we've only ever benefited from betting on Ohio State and Alabama. Took them to the woodshed. So, Daniel, I will never, ever. We said this before. Now I'm sticking to it. I'll never, ever, 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 ever bet on Wisconsin again.
I mean, their quarterback gets hurt in the first quarter, and it's kind of a rough sledding. It was going to be rough sledding either way, but then when you don't have your best guy, it's going to be a long road. And I don't think having their starter in there would have made a difference at all in the score. But I do think that kind of sets the tone for the game because, I mean, they were it was 7-3 after the first quarter. They had drove down, they kicked a field goal. They looked okay, like they could make it a game, but then Alabama just poured it on. And I just think Wisconsin didn't really have much after that to prove or to show.
Well, we're not going to do pick'ems. We'll save that for our Wednesday episode later this week. But just to let you know, Daniel, we got number 24 Illinois at number 22 Nebraska. We got number 11 USC and number 18 Michigan. We got number 12 Utah and number 14 Oklahoma State. We got number 6 Tennessee and number 15 Oklahoma. So 4 ranked matchups this weekend. A great slate of football. And then, like I said, I will be live at UCLA, LSU. And the best part about what I just read you was one of those games that I would be interested in is on Friday night. And then the other one is the late game Saturday night. So I should be able to take it all in.
So the football gods, the scheduling gods are looking out for you this weekend. They weren't so much this past weekend, but they are moving forward. So
I don't know. I said that, Daniel, but man, when Memphis and LSU, I'm at the bar and they both win in the same 30-minute span, it's pretty nice. And the thing was, it actually worked out because it didn't look like LSU was going to win. So I was actually letting Memphis's win kind of keep me from not getting too upset. So had LSU not pulled it out, I was going to be okay. I would have been upset, but not nearly. So it was having them on at the same time. But then when LSU pulled off, it's like, I'm walking out there, head held high, shoulders up and everything. And then went to Buffalo again on Sunday, and the Saints win. The Cowboys fans were leaving by halftime. I'm sorry. And anyway, I was like, man, I just live here this weekend.
Well, let's go to NFL. We'll start with your team because my team clearly didn't get off the bus. You have a home opener and you bring the Saints in. The energy you're going to get. Traditionally, Dallas and New Orleans, you get a very split crowd no matter where you're at. And the Saints just from start to finish put it on Dallas. Dallas couldn't hang with the pace. There was 2 plays in particular. There was a screen to Kamara, and then Rashid slips open on a breakdown of coverage. I have no idea, but
I don't think it's a break. It's burned by them. That's what happens when you got 4.2 speed.
Yeah, but the thing is there was no one outside of that guy that was like, oh shit, let me help out and give up some help to the guy who we know is going to run fucking deep. Like, that's the guy. Like, if anybody's going to beat you deep, it's going to be that guy because he's the fastest. And yet there was nobody back there. But when you see 70-yard touchdowns, that's not something that happens all the time. So to me, that's a breakdown. And how good the Saints are after 2 weeks is pretty telling. They're a very good football team. How good they will be throughout the season, obviously a lot to be determined. But if they score on every possession, they will win every game. And that's pretty much what's going on is 90% of their possessions, they're scoring some type of points on. And no matter how good your defense is, because I'm still convinced that Dallas has a good defense. I just think that they had some breakdowns and they were exploited in ways that with maybe Mike Zimmer that he can hopefully figure out. He's been in the game for a long time, and I'm not knocking his ability to be a defensive coordinator. But Dan Quinn, the one thing I did like about him is he was able to make defensive adjustments, and those things didn't happen.
Well,
on the defensive end, when things got away from you on the defensive end, it's because your offense was totally inept.
Right. Well, I'll tell you. So first play of the game, Kamara runs off tackle towards Micah Parsons' side. Micah tackles him for 1 yard. That was the last time, and that was where the game plan changed. You notice Kamara didn't run inside. He was running outside. And every time they ran an opposite side, Micah Parsons. So that's where it's somebody else has to step up besides him, because they clearly are going to go the opposite way of you. And I think that was the key to the passes like to Shaheed, a lot of their big hitters. You established the run game so well that the play action then was set up perfect. And when Carr did a play action, y'all were getting no pressure on him. He was sitting back there. And Derek Carr is the kind of quarterback that if you can love him, hate him, he's got, historically some, bad decisions. But if he's got time back there, man, he will absolutely dice you apart. This is going back 7 games into last season that he's been the best quarterback statistically. But he has figured out this offense, new offensive coordinator. Everything is just gelling. When you got Olave and Shaheed, who are phenomenal, and Kamara is running like a quarterback who's up for a contract at the age of 30, and clearly he wants to get paid, and he's just running rejuvenated. He didn't look like that the last couple years. But offensive line, we've spent, how many times I've gotten mad that our first pick has been an offensive lineman. Well, it's paying off right now because they're protecting him. We said we were in disagreement. I thought this was more about how good the Saints were. Everybody said last week it was because it was Carolina. Well, they came out and did the exact same thing the same way. 14, to your point, 14 straight possessions between the 2 games of where they scored. Punter still actually hasn't got on the field because Derek Carr's pick was when we turned it over and didn't score. But I don't know. I'm a firm believer, because this defense has been a top 5 for 5 years, straight legit. I mean, Tom Brady doesn't get a Super Bowl if the offense was anything, because the defense. But that play to Shaheed, I want to bring it back up again, because Daniel, when it comes to Derek Carr, protection or not, I talk about getting comfortable. He put that in the air and put it in his breadbasket 60 yards in air. That's timing. That's knowing your guys. So that's one of the reasons why I'm a believer. We'll find out a lot. If the Saints can beat Philly and 2 of your first 3 wins are against those 2 elite teams like that, because you're upset with the Cowboys, but I mean, y'all's winning streak outside the postseason game was like 14 or something. I think that's a fantastic win, and I think it says more about the Saints. But I'm high on them. I would say through 2 weeks, there's no doubt that you would say them, the Bills, the Bucks, the Texans, and the Steelers. I'd say probably the 5 easily best looking teams where there was consistency both weeks. And that the interesting part is, if I told you, Daniel, before the season that the NFC South, which is traditionally trash, the Bucks and the Saints were 2 of the top 5, you'd tell me that's crazy.
Yeah. From that division, I mean, we would have never have picked that.
Daniel, how Browns like is it that the Browns got rid of Baker Mayfield, and for the 2nd straight year he's balling out, and then you got a guy that you overpaid in Deshaun Watson, who's just not good. Like, that is so Browns like, that you would let a guy go and he would ball out, and then you overpaid for a guy who not only has struggled on the field, but has a reputation off the field that you just don't want to be attached to.
Yeah, and this weekend they didn't win. They didn't beat Jacksonville because of him.
Right.
Because of the offense, period. It was because of Myles Garrett. That was 100% the reason they won the game. But you're right. It is very Browns-like to get rid of Baker, and here he is just being able to be himself, not having to do more than what he's asked, even though he is.
And Godwin and Evans, I mean, he has 2 elite guys. I messaged you. I mean, Godwin is still absolutely a top-tier wide receiver too, to go alongside Evans. I mean, he's got 2 dudes that he can throw the ball around, and those are guys who are going to get open.
The problem with the Browns is they overpaid a guy, but not only did they overpay him, they guaranteed him so much money that you have no choice but to play him, because you're not going to pay him to do nothing. And I think, it's very Browns-like to have to do that. I think a team that is surprising everybody, or at least surprising me, and a guy that's surprising me, is Sam Darnold and the Vikings, dude. You would have thought, Jefferson, even though he left the game, he did put up some numbers, but I think those guys are playing well, and you would have never thought that bringing Sam Darnold in, being their starter, losing Kirk Cousins, and kind of the rotation of guys that they had to go through last year to try to keep up, that they would bounce back this year. But they're a team to watch out for too.
In a winnable division because Green Bay lost Jordan Love. They obviously won yesterday, but I mean, they're not somebody I would pick to win it. The Bears were not. I mean, Caleb Williams for the Bears ownership group. How do two guys, one Tampa, one in Mississippi, who just talk sports for fun, sit there and say for 6 straight weeks in college football that a guy was overrated and borderline trash, and then you still picked him number one? If we can see that, how can you not see that and then be surprised after 2 weeks? Even Mike, on his rant yesterday said, I tried to, because he wasn't big on him, but he's like, I tried to buy into it. And dude doesn't have an offensive touchdown through 2 weeks and tries to play hero ball. I mean, he literally made the most beautiful escape last night, breaking multiple tackles where he should have been sacked, and just was elusive, and then just turns around and throws a pick with it, like trying to throw a ball 50 yards downfield on a Hail Mary. Like, what are you doing?
So let me ask this. We picked this. I don't think we said that he couldn't be a serviceable NFL quarterback, but we did say that he wasn't the guy. And now that he's not, we're saying he's not the guy, and now things are playing out exactly the way that we expected them to play out. Are we being too harsh on the future of this guy, or do we not think he can even be an NFL quarterback? Because I will say this, when you come into the league, no matter what college you go to, I mean, look at Bryce Young right now. Like, he was at an elite college and played and won elite things.
You're bringing up Bryce Young is why I'm worried about him in a overall career standpoint. Bryce Young mentally is now like destroyed. And if you keep Caleb out there and this happens all year, where is he next year? Is he right where Bryce Young is? Because that's the risk you run when you start a rookie, right? You have some that turn out like CJ Stroud, right? And he's phenomenal. But more times than not, if you run a guy out there from the start of their rookie season and they get smashed, I think all the way back to Derek Carr's older brother. I'm blanking on his first name. From Fresno State, was absolutely elite. David Carr went to the Texans and set the record 5 straight years for getting sacked the most, and he was the most elite talent. And he just, after he got out of that situation finally, he just wasn't himself. If you tear down a quarterback early, it's hard maybe possibly to get them back. So personally, if it's me, I would put Badgett in and give this guy a break. And everybody's going to say, you can't start the first pick for a couple games and paying all that money and then sit him down. Why not? Why? Because it's not what you're supposed to do. Look, be like, look, the kid, we're trying to save you. You're back there getting blasted. Maybe you take a seat for a few games and let's just dial back. And what do we learn from all these athletes that come on our show when they talk about sitting and learning? Every one of them has said it, no matter what the sport is. It's so beneficial, man. There was a reason why Aaron Rodgers, was able to thrive the way he was. Phillip Rivers, those guys sat there and watched professional guys in Brett Favre and Drew Brees in front of them. That shit matters.
We have a perfect example in Minnesota of a guy who was pushed in, pulled out, and now he's able to maybe less expectations going into the season, but the more they win, the higher those expectations are going to be.
You said it right. You didn't expect it. He's the guy that surprised you. That's exactly what you're talking about. Because of what happened before, now those expectations have been taken off him. And now when you do well, people are very impressed with you. If you do bad, it's okay because they didn't think that high to begin with.
Right. What about your boy, Jaden Daniels? I mean,
they got the win. It's never pretty when you kick 7 field goals and that's how you get it, but it's beating the Giants, right? And it's just 2 bad teams. If I want to focus on anybody from that game, it's Malik Neighbors proving that he was the dude. It's funny. Marvin Harrison Jr. had 2 touchdowns and some big stats or whatever. His stats still weren't Malik Neighbors because, like I always said, Malik Neighbors was better than him. Wide receiver U continues to tune out. Brian Thomas Jr. was doing the same thing. That's a different game. But, Washington and New York are the bottom of your division. Whoever lost the game is pretty solidifying. We know Daniel Jones is trash, but I do think Jaden Daniels has a future. If anything, he's going to have to learn. He reminds me a lot of Cam Newton and his not wanting to slide and get away from hits. If he doesn't want his career to unfold like Cam Newton, he'll learn quickly.
Oh, definitely. All right. I want to play a little game with you. All right. Of these 2-0 teams, what team do you think is a fraud? Buffalo, Pittsburgh, Houston, the Chargers, the Chiefs, the Vikings, the Saints, the Bucks, the Seahawks.
It's between two. I don't think two teams on that list are frauds at all. I think all of them are legit. It's the Chargers or the Seahawks.
Okay. And why the Chargers and why the Seahawks? I mean, obviously,
Chargers was about who they played, but Herbert, I still believe in the guy, but all his weapons are gone now. Like, I don't know that they can sustain that success. And then I like Geno Smith, but he's not it. And anytime they face a good team, they bracket DK Metcalf, and he's nowhere to be found. Week 1, he was nowhere to be found. They managed to still get the win, but I don't know. Just it starts with weapons offensively. I don't think either of those teams are explosive enough offensively to keep it up, especially when you look at who they would have to beat. Like I can, the 49ers, I think this week showed CMC was, missing, but I think ultimately they're not nearly good enough to deal with the 49ers. And the same thing with the Chargers. I mean, you're in a division with the Chiefs, so
true.
Which the Chiefs, by the way, lost Pacheco, and they had already lost Juju. Like, speaking of running out of weapons, like I'm a believer that Patrick Mahomes can win with anybody, but
the Chiefs don't run out of weapons, man. They
usually find guys, but at some point. But here's what I don't understand, Daniel, because I have him in one league in fantasy, and you have him in our league. I don't understand how he's got no weapons and then yet can't get Travis Kelce the ball. Is Travis Kelce starting to get aged up to where he can't just get open all the time?
Maybe he's tired from all his travels on the Eras Tour.
You won this week, and your top 2 picks were garbage.
Yeah,
Jamar Chase and Travis Kelce had nothing to do with your win.
I won this week because Tua's career ended, and Jalen Waddle or Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle both rely on Tua to get them the ball. So, that's why
a win's a win. What do we say? A win is a win.
That's right. Whether it's 1 or 1,000, a win is a win. All right. The next question of the winless teams, who has the ability to come back? The Ravens, the Bengals, the Jaguars, the Colts, the Titans, the Broncos, the Giants. We'll throw the Falcons in there, even though they play tonight, and the Rams.
Okay, so I base this answer. I got a little cheat because I listened to the radio this morning, and they were talking about the Ravens' schedule. Okay, so basically, week 5, the Ravens and the Bengals are going to play each other, and those are the 2 teams that I look at immediately. Well, before that, the Ravens play at Dallas and Buffalo. Okay, I think they're 0-4. I think they're demoralized. Lamar Jackson's unhappy, and I think Joe Burrow, regardless where they're sitting, which I think they'll be sitting better, wins that game. And I think you're looking, like they're talking on the radio, at an 0-5 Ravens team. Whereas, let me tell you what the Bengals got next. You ready for this? Washington and Carolina. Talk about a way to fix everything. So the Bengals will be 2-2. Facing an 0-4 Ravens team, and they will move to 3-2, and the Ravens will be 0-5 with
so. So what I hear you saying is I need to insert Joe Burrow as my starting quarterback and remove Lamar Jackson. That's what I hear you saying.
I actually thought about trying to fleece you as my best friend. I was thinking about, you know what, maybe Daniel will want to offload Jamar Chase with frustration. And then I was like, but if Daniel clicks this and reads this at all, it literally says fantasy owners do not panic. And it literally talks about having those two teams on deck. And
T. Higgins just needs to come back. I mean, having those two teams on deck helps, but having another capable wide receiver in the mix will help too.
Yeah, because they're bracketing him, obviously. But I think one thing that hurts, because I noticed it in the Texans game, and it's kind of funny because the Texans even stalled out for a whole quarter when he was hurt. I think what they're missing is Mixon, because the Texans, when Mixon was healthy in the first half, and if you look back to last week, because I watched that whole game, when they established that run game, no different than when I was talking about the Saints, Stroud's able to throw the ball all over the yard, and I think that's what's missing from the Bengals. I think no longer having Joe Mixon in that ground game has put too much pressure on the pass game, and then when you don't have Higgins and they're bracketing Chase, I think that's all a byproduct and result. It just really shows about being a team with complementary football and having a run and pass game.
I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why the Cowboys were so ineffective is because you have a team that's going to play you man like the Saints, and the one man that you have to worry about is CeeDee Lamb, and there's no other man that you got to worry about. Like, I mean, that makes your job a lot easier. So, but anything else? Where do you want to take this before we bounce out of here?
Let's see. Let me go back to my games. I had it off on that schedule. So week 2. Of course, we got a big one tonight. I need my boy. It's funny. So what?
Said you need Saquon.
Well, I basically need 2 different Eagles players to get 10 points to win both my leagues. I need Goddard to get the same, basically. So if the Eagles can just take care of business, which will set up for a big game between the Saints and the Eagles next week. But let me double check and look. I knew what it was. Titans. Grow the game moment. Dude, it was awesome. They had Tony V, Xander Seacrest, Kirby, the strength coach, and trying to think of the other players. All had their actual jersey numbers on the Titans jerseys they were given. Tony did the Excalibur sword, all that. Well, look, we saw the Tennessee football team, the band, show the baseball diamond, spell out Tony V. We see Billy Amick's song, making its way around different sporting events and people clapping. And then you see them out there getting the whole crowd erupting for them. We made this joke, right? We said that in off the bench was the reason for the spark, but I made the joke in the same time. I said, no, it's actually, Tennessee's relevance. I think there's so much truth to that, Daniel. I think because Tennessee was the villain at first for the first few years, right? And then it felt like this team, people actually really got on board and enjoyed. But whether you love them or hate them, I feel like Tennessee has a significant role. The ratings show it because they're involved in a lot of pretty much Tennessee and LSU are involved in all the highest rated games. And so when we talk about grow the game, what Tennessee is doing, and it shows because when they go to all these different events that they're doing and the way that they just regard Tony V, man, he is a superstar. And that team is the biggest deal when you talk about moving the needle outside of LSU. So I love it to see baseball crossing into football twice now with those guys. And when you talk about what that does for recruiting, he's already, the top recruiter, even over Jay Johnson, in my opinion. It's not going to slow down at all.
No, not at all. And there's 3.5 million reasons why. So, Anything else before we get out of here, man? College, MLB, pro, soccer, hockey,
Soccer,
NBA.
shout out to the Tennessee women for making me look ridiculous on our show. I guaranteed a bloodbath. They won. Shout out Texas women's volleyball. Speaking of bloodbath, had Reagan on Athletes of Faith. I said, could y'all let another team win a set? And she's like, that the goal is to not let them. They're just going to keep punishing other teams.
Well, that's not very godlike.
It's not very godlike at all. Let's see. Shout out Danielle Sievers for hosting the girls who were there for their campus tour visits. For Oklahoma, I happen to know one of the girls. She follows on Instagram. I get clips from her. Danielle, she is the #1 recruit, and Oklahoma's at the top of their list. So I don't think they're fixing to slow down. Just trying to think all around sports. If there's anything, I don't know, man. We got a lot of good stuff. I know something, man. That's good. For Mississippi State being down on football, Hardy put on a concert at Duty Noble, and it was cool, Daniel. They had the infield protected, and they had the walkways going down each side of the first and third base line, and then it came back into the outfield, and it had all the seats set up. The stage was in front of the left field and right field cooking sections, and then they had that stuff set up. Anyway, we talked about how cool it is in a football stadium, but man, you can't fit as many obviously in a baseball stadium, but man, they made this thing awesome. So Mississippi State, for what they're not getting done on the football field, and we talk about them being an elite baseball program, they're also finding ways to put on badass concerts, which shout out to the bellsmith, because Hardy was ringing his bell during the concert. So just a cool little nugget out there. So shout out Mississippi State, not getting done on the football field, but man, finding ways to be relevant, with music and with using the mecca of college baseball stadiums. But I think outside of that, I think that is it.
We think about your boy Jamar Chase. He's got to do better.
Definitely got to.
Disrespectful.
If you want to trade him, you can.
Referee. No, I'm good. I'm gonna hold on to him for at least 2 more weeks. So
let me see. Memphis got biggest winners this weekend, rated by College Football Live. Wanted to throw that out there because we talked about them. Just want to remind you one more time that Alvin Kamara scored 4 touchdowns on y'all, and I'm just going through all our discussion. Make sure I hit every point.
I mean, if you want reminders, I told you not to bet Wisconsin. And he did that too. So.
Oh well. At least it's not as bad as drafting Caleb Williams, #1 overall.
True that. Sorry, Mike.
Hey, that's where I'm going to end. My last thing. Our host of Pros and Joes. Look, I had Cal Stark message me last week. I said, here, watch this clip. This is why, because he was like, we can go ahead and run the episode tonight without him. I was like, man, you should reschedule. You're going to want to have this guy there. I send him the clip, and he goes, okay, that's the funniest dude I've ever seen in sports. He goes, that clip was hilarious. I said, I know. Mike has been on one. And then I watched his rant last night on the Bears. Mike is pure entertainment. When we've talked about this, right? And I'll say this, and Mike can listen. When Mike's not got his head in the game, he's tough to deal with. He shows up late. He's unprepared. But if you get a locked-in, prepared Mike Hughes, I think he's as entertaining as anybody in this country. I hate to say it's over us, Daniel. He is funny. He knows his stuff. Like when he goes on those rants, he's coming with straight facts and stats. So shout out Mike Hughes, man. Stay locked in, bro. You go to the top. You're a young cat. We're old, man. You ain't but 23, 24. Stay locked in, kid. You take it all the way.
That's right. Stay locked in. Everybody else, stay locked in. We got a good one coming at you tonight. Who we got, Jim?
We got Maya. Man, you're the ones kind of pronounce it. I'm going to have to see a clip or something. Lausen, I believe it is, but superstar gymnast from Cal, the runners up last year in the national championship. They are bringing back their whole team basically like Oklahoma is. honestly, when you look at what Utah's got, Daniel, I think this is a 4-horse race. Maybe Florida gets in the mix, which we don't want to talk about. But when you look at Oklahoma, what they brought back, LSU, what they're bringing back minus Kaya Johnson, what Cal's bringing back, and then Utah, like, dude, if you're not a college gymnastics fan, this is the year to give it a shot and watch those particular programs, and I promise you will not be disappointed.
Yep. We say it every year. College gymnastics is probably the most underrated sport in regards to bang for your buck ticket and just jam-packed excitement. And
There was a Texas fan this weekend on Twitter. I got sent it by Alex Day, who does our Hot Corner, Daniel. It says, check this tweet out. And it was a Texas fan saying that college gymnastics was not entertaining and nobody outside of he literally said nobody outside of Norman, Oklahoma cares. And I was like, bro, this is one of those tweets where you have the #1 volleyball team. And so, because he also talked about volleyball was a much better sport. You have the #1 volleyball team and you don't have a gymnastics program. So it's just ignorance to the subject. You shouldn't be able to even talk in the subject because you don't have a gymnastics program. I've been to the PMAC now, 10 times in total, where I've seen over 10,000 people there to watch it. I went to Fort Worth where I watched finals with all these different schools, and it was a packed more than 10,000 again. I've never seen outside of what Nebraska volleyball did with the football stadium. I've never seen any videos where there's been 10,000 plus watching volleyball, bro.
Hey, and it's the indication of stupidity is there because clearly they don't know what the most watched Olympic sport was. And it wasn't even close. So with that, let's get out of here. Let's bounce. Want to thank our sponsors, Chinook Scenery, Smith's Plumbing Services, Old Dominic Distillery, Memphis City Designs. We'll see y'all later tonight. We're talking gymnastics. As always, remember, strong body, sharp minds, grit and grind all the time.